Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Anil Thomas. Coming up in the next hour. Israel approves minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza as it slams UN chief for invoking a rare Article 99 of the UN Charter. Ukraine and Israel aid bill blocked in the US Senate as Republicans demand tougher border control measures. Las Vegas campus shooting leaves 3 dead. 1 is critical, while bloodshed ends with suspects' own death. And in sports, India squares off against Spain in the FIH Men's Junior Hockey World Cup. Amidst the escalating tension of Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu approved a minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza Strip. Israel's political security cabinet gave the green light to the decision as it was aimed to prevent a humanitarian collapse and the outbreak of diseases in the enclave south. In a statement issued by Israeli Prime Minister's office, the amount of fuel would be determined by the cabinet and adjusted based on the local humanitarian situation. The decision to allow fuel into the Gaza Strip is conditional on the Red Cross being granted access to Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza. Well, while US Senate blocked a bill that would have provided security assistance for both Ukraine and Israel on Wednesday, the bill was to provide about $50 billion in new military assistance for Ukraine, as well as money for humanitarian and economic aid for the government in Kyiv, plus $14 billion for Israel in combating Hamas in Gaza. As 49 votes were in favor and 51 against, it fell short of the 60 votes needed in the 100-member Senate to pave the way to start debate. It threatens President Joe Biden's push to provide new aid before the end of 2023. Republicans also pressed their demand for tougher measures to control immigration at the U.S. border with Mexico. Israeli forces also shared a video on Wednesday where they were seen retrieving RPG missiles, anti-tank missiles, explosive devices, long-range missiles, grenades and UAVs. The forces claim that the ammunition are stored in schools and a medical facility in Gaza by Hamas to use for terrorism. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen has said that the UN chief Antonio Guterres' tenure was a danger to world peace after he invoked a rare procedure with the Security Council over the Gaza war. He said, and I quote, "Guterres' tenure is a danger to world peace. His request to activate Article 99 and the call for a ceasefire in Gaza constitutes support of the Hamas terrorist organization." In a rare move, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter and formally warned the Security Council of a global threat from the Gaza war. Taking to social media, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres wrote, and I quote, I have just invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter for the first time in my tenure as Secretary-General, facing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system in Gaza, I urge the Council to help avert a humanitarian catastrophe and appeal for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared. In his 2-page letter, Guterres wrote or told the Council that the Gaza war may aggravate existing threats to international peace and security. He also highlighted that more than 1,200 brutally killed by militants on 7th of October, which included 33 children and 130 people being held captive. This must be immediately and unconditionally released. Accounts of sexual violence during these attacks are appalling, according to the UN chief. Stating that the article has not been used for decades, UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said that the UN chief invoked Article 99 of the founding UN Charter that allows him to bring the matter to the attention of the Security Council.
The Secretary General has today delivered a letter to the President of the Security Council invoking Article 99 of the Charter of the United Nations. This is the first time that Antonio Guterres has done this since he became Secretary General in 2017. Article 99 states, and I quote, that the Secretary General may bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter in his opinion that may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. In the letter, which has been shared with you, the Secretary General urges the members of the Security Council to press to avert a humanitarian catastrophe, and he appeals for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared.
The producers of the Nova Music Festival attacked by Hamas on October 7th recreated the venue in Tel Aviv on Wednesday. The exhibition was put up in memory of the hundreds killed on that day. As per the Nova Festival producer, the exhibition was designed for the whole world to see what happened at the Israeli festival. The exhibition included tents, toilets and sound equipment recovered from the scene of the attack. Well, shifting focus from the Israel-Hamas armed conflict to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, a powerful explosion rocked the industrial district of the Russian-controlled Donetsk city, setting an oil depot ablaze on Wednesday. The Russian-backed city authorities haven't commented on that particular incident. There is also no immediate response from Ukraine. Ukrainian troops continue to hold positions on the outskirts of Donetsk, and it regularly comes under artillery fire. US President Joe Biden pleaded with Republicans for a fresh infusion of military aid for Ukraine on Wednesday, warning that a victory for Russia over Ukraine would leave Moscow in a position to attack NATO allies.
Well, Congress, Republicans in Congress are willing to give Putin the greatest gift he could hope for and abandon our global leadership, not just Ukraine, but beyond that. We've all seen the brutality that Putin has inflicted on Ukraine, invading another country, trying to subjugate his neighbors to his iron rule. If Putin takes Ukraine, he won't stop there. It's important to see the long run here. He's going to keep going. He's made that pretty clear. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going, and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory.
US President Joe Biden and leaders of the group of 7 countries met virtually with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday. They all agreed to a new ban on Russian diamonds. As per the joint statement, the countries will ban non-industrial diamonds from Russia by January under the new measures. The Russian diamonds sold by third countries will also be banned from March. The leaders also plan to impose more sanctions to enforce a price cap on Russian oil. Well, for more on the story, we've got DD India's Chris Gilbert joining us with the latest. Good morning, Chris. How does one take into look, especially this particular decision by the G7?
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly follows through on intentions that they've said earlier in the year. All the way back in May, when the G7 leaders held their summit here in Japan, they said that they were going to target Russia's revenue to continue its war campaign in Ukraine by cutting off, energy revenue, but particularly focusing on the global trade of Russian diamonds. It's now saying that it is intending to target them at the source of non-industrial minerals production and capacity in Russia, but also focusing on those third countries, and this may include BRICS members such as Brazil, South Africa and India, from preventing them and asking them and maybe even pressuring them from importing Russian diamonds. They believe that this is absolutely essential for ending the invasion of Ukraine. It also comes at a time when a lot of the world's attention is on the continued Israeli bombing of Palestinian hospitals and refugee camps. So it's timely for the G7 to remind Moscow and the international community of what it calls its unwavering support for Ukraine.
Also, Chris, what new moves is Japan making when it comes to supporting Ukraine?
Well, there's another $4.5 billion promised, and that's quite sizable considering that previous packages from Tokyo to Ukraine have come in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And this money is really focused on humanitarian aid. Japan cannot export weapons or ammunition. Its constitution forbids it for doing so, although the ruling parties are working very hard to try and find workarounds to allow Japan to export ammunition and weapons at the moment. But it is focused on regenerative aid such as power, resources, and also providing aid to Poland as well to help that country with the humanitarian crisis with the refugees coming in from Ukraine. But look, this is really important for Japan. Experts here in Tokyo are reminding me just this morning that Japan is the only Asian nation inside the G7. It is hosting the G7 this year. It has a few weeks left in doing so before it loses the chairmanship of the G7 for another 7 years, and its last chance to really focus the agenda for itself, its own interests. And political scientists in Tokyo have told me that it's a chance for Japan to remind its European and North American partners that it cares about the same things they do, that it cares about wars on the other side of the world, and that way if any potential conflict were to break out in this part of the world, they can reliably rely on their assistance in return.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us this morning on NewsHour. Well, U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that U.S. continues to watch the defense relationship that's pretty tense, especially between Iran and Russia. He added that Iran is a threat to the security in the Middle East.
The only thing I'd add is that we're continuing to watch this burgeoning defense relationship between Iran and Russia. That's worrisome because Iran continues to provide drones to Mr. Putin, who uses those drones to attack energy infrastructure and kill innocent Ukrainians. And what the Iranians are expecting in return is a measure of defense industrial support as well. And Iran, that has more advanced capabilities and availability to get their hands on Russian weapons, that's not an Iran that's healthy for the security environment in the Middle East.
Well, U.S. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson met with British Foreign Minister David Cameron on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. The Republican leader of the U.S. House of Representatives has urged for more information on Ukraine strategy and immigration policy changes amid a week-long impasse over Kyiv security assistance. Cameron was expected to reaffirm both the strength of Britain's relationship with Washington and London's continued support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi is set to hold talks with Russian President at the Kremlin following Putin's recent visit to Saudi and United Arab Emirates. Earlier this fall, Russia's top diplomat and military chief visited Iran. The West has accused Iran of supporting Russia's war in Ukraine by supplying drones and other weaponry. Kremlin has denied these allegations. DD India's correspondent Dasha Chernushova provides us the latest from Moscow.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is to host Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi in Moscow on Thursday. The talks will focus on trade and economic cooperation, including in the energy sector, according to the Kremlin. During this working visit by the Iranian president, the sides will also exchange views on major international and regional issues. According to the Iranian media, a high-ranking economic and political delegation is to accompany President Raisi during his visit to Moscow. Raisi's visit comes a day after Putin traveled to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia for talks on energy and regional politics. Putin and Raisi last held a phone conversation in October, raising concerns about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. And the Iranian media also say that humanitarian situation in Gaza will also be on the agenda of Thursday talks in Moscow. Dasha Chernushova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
Well, still to come on DD India News Hour. UK Immigration Minister resigns over strong disagreement on Rwanda policy. Donald Trump barred from speaking publicly about court staff in his civil fraud trial. We'll tell you the details ahead. And NASA is celebrating 25 years of the International Space Station's operations. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. In the United States, a shooting on the main campus of the University of Nevada in Los Angeles has, Las Vegas, I beg your pardon, on Wednesday has left at least 3 people dead before the bloodshed ended with the suspect's own death. The Las Vegas Police Department said that the 3 people aside from the shooter were killed. Another person who was shot is in a critical condition. Authorities have not identified the victims. It also remained unclear whether the suspect was shot dead by police or committed suicide. Official details of the incident remain sketchy. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department sheriff said there was no longer any threat to the community, but the main UNLV campus and other branches of the university were being closed for the day out of caution.
I will tell you that this combined police, state, local, and federal law enforcement, along with the fire department, worked very well. As the chief told you, we do have one suspect down. Of course, we have no idea on the motive. There are a number of victims that have been transported to area hospitals, so I don't want to give you false information and tell you how many victims that we have, but we will be providing that update very, very shortly.
The New York Attorney General's office has said that Donald Trump should remain barred from speaking publicly about court staff in his civil fraud trial. The judge overseeing the case, Justice Arthur Enrogan, issued the gag order on the 3rd of October after the former U.S. president shared on social media a photo of the judge's law clerk posing with the U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, and falsely called her Schumer's girlfriend. Enrogan in November extended the order, barring the party's lawyers from commenting on the clerk's communication with the court. Trump last month appealed, arguing the order violated his constitutional right to free speech. A judge at the mid-level state appeals court paused the orders on November 16th, but a full panel reinstated them 2 weeks later. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley was the subject of repeated attacks during the opening moments of Wednesday's Republican presidential debate as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sought to blunt her momentum just weeks before the party's first nominating contest in Iowa. The two rivals are vying to emerge as the chief alternative to the absent former President Donald Trump, who has maintained a commanding lead in opinion polls ahead of Iowa's Jan 15 contest. DeSantis boasted about legislation he had passed in Florida banning gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth and accused Haley of opposing the law, an assertion Haley denied. Former tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie also took part in the debate staged in Tuscaloosa in Alabama, but all eyes were on DeSantis and Haley as the narrowing Republican fields run short of time to derail Trump's march to the 2024 nomination. As with the first three debates, the former president, leading by more than 40 percentage points, is the most opinion polls, skipped Wednesday's event, instead attending a fundraiser in his home state of Florida. Ousted U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said that he will leave Congress at the end of this year, a move that raised anxieties among his fellow Republicans about the path that lies ahead for their narrow and fractious majority. His move came as Congress struggles to move forward on a raft of critically important legislations, which include fiscal 2024 spending bills that Congress must adopt by Jan 19 to avert a partial government shutdown. The task poses a new and perilous test for McCarthy's successor, House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson, a Christian conservative with relatively little leadership experience, who won the gavel after weeks of bitter Republican infighting. The United States on Wednesday formally determined that the warring parties in Sudan committed war crimes. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said as Washington increases pressure on the army and the paramilitary forces to end fighting that has caused a humanitarian crisis. Blinken in a statement said Washington also determined that the RSF and allied militias committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. The fighting, which broke out in mid-April, has displaced more than 6.5 million people inside and outside Sudan, killed more than 10,000 and decimated the economy. Anthony Blinken called on the parties to stop this conflict now, comply with their obligations under international humanitarian and human rights law, and hold accountable those responsible for these atrocities. The RSF has been accused of leading an ethnic massacre in West Darfur and in the capital Khartoum. Residents have accused the paramilitary force of looting, rape and imprisoning civilians. Britain's Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick has resigned after the US government publicized draft emergency legislation aimed at getting its Rwandan migrant deportation scheme up and running. According to media reports, Jenrick quits after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak rejected his demands to opt out of the European human rights laws. The Safety of Rwanda bill, published the day after Britain signed a new treaty with Rwanda, is designed to overcome a ruling by the UK Supreme Court that the government's proposed scheme to send thousands of asylum seekers to the East African country was unlawful. Britain's former Prime Minister Boris Johnson gave his most explicit apology for his handling of the coronavirus crisis on Wednesday, saying his government had been too complicit and vastly underestimated the risks posed by the virus. In an appearance before the official inquiry into the UK's handling of the pandemic, Johnson said he took responsibility for all the decisions made and he understood the public's anger after the inquiry heard the government's incompetence, backstabbing and misogyny as it battled the biggest health crisis in decades. Johnson said COVID-19 had first appeared as a cloud on the horizon and not the typhoon that went on to kill more than 230,000 people in Britain and infect many millions more. Initially, Boris Johnson said he did not believe the forecast of fatalities because previous health scares such as the swine flu pandemic and mad cow disease ended up with much lower death tolls than first expected. The presidents of the European Council and European Commission will travel to Beijing on Thursday for the 24th EU-China summit. The summit will be the first in-person meeting between two presidents have held with Chinese President Xi Jinping in 4 years. DD India's correspondent Alex Cadia has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel will try to strike a delicate balance in their meetings with Chinese leaders. On the one hand, they plan to raise a number of thorny issues on which the EU and China have not seen eye to eye. On the other, they recognise that trade with China is a lifeline for the European Union. According to EU officials, the two presidents will urge China to use its influence over Russia to end that country's invasion of Ukraine and to help close loopholes that have allowed Russia to avoid European sanctions. Both President Michel and von der Leyen have separately and repeatedly raised this point with President Xi in past meetings. On geopolitics, the EU leaders will warn against any escalation in the South China Sea or around Taiwan. They'll also urge China to provide more aid to the civilian population in Gaza. Geopolitical tensions between the two sides have also impacted their vital trading relationship, with China and the EU rolling out strategies to reduce their dependence on each other. And trade will almost certainly be a key topic between the leaders, with European and Chinese businesses looking on, hoping for an improvement in that relationship. The Chinese government, for its part, has said it seeks to deepen ties with the European Union. Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that only by adhering to communication and coordination can the EU and China play a constructive role in maintaining world peace and stability and addressing global challenges. The EU has also recognized that all hope is not lost. They highlight the two sides have worked well on vital issues such as climate change and protecting biodiversity. In any case, EU officials don't expect any major breakthroughs at this summit. What they do say is that with the stakes so high, having the summit in the first place is a positive step forward. Alex Cadia in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Well, Australia and neighbouring Papua New Guinea signed a bilateral security agreement on Thursday. The deal is designed to bolster Papua New Guinea's internal security through more assistance in policing, defence and the judiciary. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his counterpart James Marape said the agreement showed the closeness between the two nations. Former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori, who was serving a 25-year prison term for human rights abuses, was released on Wednesday evening. The release followed Peru's highest court's order restoring a contentious 2017 pardon on humanitarian grounds, despite criticism from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the victims' families. Fujimori, 85, was seen leaving prisons on the outskirts of Peru's capital, Lima. Well, let's take a look at some other stories making news from around the world. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Wednesday announced new sanctions against 15 individuals and 2 Mexican companies linked to the Beltran-Leyva drug cartel. The new sanctions come in to crack down on the illicit financing network supporting the cartels and drug traffickers that help funnel the drug into the United States. Yellen described Beltran as one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world and a major supplier of cocaine and now fentanyl to the U.S. Authorities in Colombia and Brazil have destroyed 19 illegal gold mining sites and equipment in the Amazon rainforest as part of the joint efforts with Brazil to crack down on gold mines in the Amazon area. The blown-up illegal mining sites were responsible for producing about $1.5 million of the precious metal a month and contaminating rivers with around 1 lakh grams of mercury per month. Chilean government on Wednesday confirmed the death of 3 Argentinian climbers who went missing last week on the Marmolejo mountain in the Chilean Andes. The bodies found at an altitude of 5,600 meters has previously been spotted by a private helicopter involved in the search of the climbers. NASA on Wednesday celebrated 25 years of the International Space Station's operations. The first 2 modules of the ISS, named Zaira and Unify, were joined together in 1998. NASA's Associate Administrator Bob Cabana and ISS Program Manager Joel Montalbano spoke to the 7 members of the expedition, 70 crew on board the station, to mark the occasion. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Google's highly anticipated AI model, Gemini, introduced with much anticipation. We brace you with the features ahead. And pop star Taylor Swift is Time's 2023 Person of the Year. Garba proudly placed as India's 15th element on UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. Israel approves a minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza as it slams UN chief for invoking rare Article 99 of UN Charter. Ukraine and Israel aid bill blocked in the US Senate as Republicans demand tougher border control measures. Las Vegas campus shooting leaves 3 dead, 1 in critical condition. Bloodshed ends with suspect's own death. And in sports, India squares off with Spain in the FIH Men's Junior Hockey World Cup. The search operation at the volcanic eruption site of Indonesia's Mount Merapi came to an end on Wednesday after rescuers evacuated all hikers and found the body of the last missing one, taking the total death count to 23. The search for 10 missing hikers had resumed on Tuesday after being paused due to safety worries. The recovery of the final body was confirmed on Wednesday by Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency. The volcanic spewed a 3-kilometer, that's 9,800 feet high ash cloud into the air on Sunday, covering the surrounding villages in ash. There were 75 hikers in the region during that eruption. Most of them were evacuated and received treatment for burns. 12 injured victims are undergoing treatment in hospital. Well, Patrick Falk, DD India's correspondent, joining us from Singapore. Patrick, good morning. The rescue operation is now complete. What more details can you give us?
Yeah, that's right. So the rescue operation has, as you say, concluded on Wednesday, though. There are about 200 people involved trying to find that one remaining climber that was still missing on Matt Marapi. There was faint hope of finding the unidentified person alive, and it has now, as you say, been confirmed that that person died also. And so the other thing rescuers did yesterday was to retrieve the 22 bodies of the dead victims on Matt Marapi. They had to bring them down. It was a very difficult operation. Remember, they had to bring them down by hand because air retrieval operations weren't possible in case of another eruption. And by all accounts, it was a harrowing experience for the victims. There is video circulating on social media of one of the victims who took a video of herself lying down with her face covered in ash, struggling to breathe. She was later confirmed to have died as well. That brings the total number of people that died in this eruption to 23 rather. It makes it the deadliest eruption since the eruption of 1979 in Mount Marapi, which saw 60 people die.
Okay, there have been recommendations for people not to be allowed to climb Mount Marapi. So why were they allowed to do so in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as a matter of fact, Indonesia's volcanology agency said it had been issuing monthly letters for the last decade to authorities warning people of the dangers of climbing Mount Marapi. It said that climbers shouldn't be allowed to go to this peak. It said that they specifically shouldn't be allowed within a 3-kilometer radius of the crater. The Environment Agency of Indonesia said that it gave permits for the climbers to go ahead after getting the green light from various local agencies, including the West Sumatran provincial government, as well as the National Disaster Agency. So there is a bit of a question mark as to who's really to blame for all of this happening. As we know, Mount Marapi is one of 120 active volcanoes in Indonesia. It's on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so there's always a risk. But the thing, as we've said before, is that this eruption really took people by surprise because the source was so close to the surface. So there are going to be questions as to who is responsible for all of this. To a certain extent, people might blame the climbers themselves for taking the risk, but also there are others that will say, well, it's up to authorities to issue warnings and to stop people from causing potential risk to themselves in these sort of circumstances.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us this morning on DD India. Well, flash floods caused by heavy rains inundated roads in Washington's Arlington on Tuesday. Emergency management officials also warned of some rivers flooding on Thursday. Authorities issued a video showing floodwaters accumulated on roads and swelling the Still-Guamish River. The National Weather Service advised people not to drive on flooded roads. As winter season begins with the onset of December, heavy snowfall blanketed southern Germany on Sunday. Many of Munich's landmarks can be seen covered with a thick layer of snow. The heavy snowfall also resulted in prompting all-day cancellations of flights and long-distance trains out of Munich. With Christmas markets closed, some ski lifts unable to run, and a football match called off as the city battled with icy conditions. Well, the coastal states of India, that's down south, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and also in the eastern part of India, Odisha, slowly crawling back to normalcy after that cyclone that hit them. But visuals from parts of Chennai and its neighboring districts show the havoc that the cyclone has caused, with several localities still inundated. Rescue teams from the NDRF, SDRF, along with civil agencies ushering those stranded to higher ground, and food packets still needed to be distributed. Helicopters from the Indian Air Force were also pressed into service, airdropping relief material in parts of the city that remained hard to reach. Schools and colleges in Chennai district have been declared holiday today in view of the waterlogging and ongoing relief efforts. Meanwhile, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is visiting Chennai today to review the situation. He will undertake an aerial visit, after which he'll meet the Chief Minister of the state. He will be briefed about the relief work underway by various agencies. Well, for more on the story, we've got our correspondent down south in Chennai, Jai Singh, joining us this morning. Jai Singh, good morning. Give us the sense, especially with regards to the Defence Minister's visit to the southern state of Chennai and the present situation there, as the Defence Minister takes an aerial survey of the affected place.
Well, Defence Minister is scheduled to visit Chennai by around 11 in the noon today, and he will be having an aerial survey accompanied by the Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, L. Murugan, and a State Minister, and also the Chief Secretary of the State. And then he will be meeting Chief Minister and other senior officials who will be briefing the Defence Minister about the various efforts that are being undertaken to rescue and provide relief to the affected public. The Chief Minister has already requested the Union government to send its team to assess the damages, and has also sought an interim relief of 5,060 crore for taking immediate relief measures like repairing the battered roads and other infrastructure. While the inundated parts in southern suburbs and also in some of the areas in Tiruvallur districts adjoining Chennai are still finding the going very tough, and people are still, trapped inside their homes for the past few days. And the Indian Air Force has deployed its assets like helicopters to airdrop water, food, and other essential items. Yesterday itself, 2.3 tons of relief materials were airdropped, and other good Samaritans like private volunteers and state and central agencies are on the job in providing the much-needed relief to those affected areas.
Okay. Also, Jai Singh, especially when it comes to, the NDRF, the SDRF, along with the state agencies that have worked overtime when it comes to, saving life and also property. But is there an increase, especially in the number of deaths that we have seen when we last counted? Yes,
the Chief Minister in his recent statement said there were 9 people who lost their lives, and now the official tally is crossing 17, because as the water starts receding, some home alone people who were trapped in water are found to be dead because of drowning, especially those who were staying in ground floor in the inundated areas like Velachery in Chennai and suburbs. Unfortunately, officials fear that the death toll may even rise, because as and when the rescue efforts reach some crucial stage, the figures may go up. It is being feared.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate your joining us. You take good care of yourself. We're going to come back for more updates on that story. Shifting focus, Bharatiya Janata Party members of Parliament welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the Parliamentary Party meeting in Delhi after the party's victory in the 3 states. Well, India is observing 74th Armed Forces Flag Day on the 7th of December, that's today. The day serves as a tribute to the martyrs and the brave men in uniform who valiantly defended India's borders, preserving the honor of nation. Flag Day emphasizes India's commitment to carrying its war-disabled soldiers, Veer Naris, the brave women and the families of martyrs who make the ultimate sacrifice for the country. The day has been observed annually since 1949. Avionics Expo 2023 began in New Delhi today, where Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is showcasing the rich legacy of its design, development and production of a diverse range of avionics systems. The two-day expo, being organized by the Indian government's defense manufacturing, was inaugurated by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan. Rwanda's Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta arrived in New Delhi on Thursday. The Foreign Minister is on an official visit to further enhance India-Rwanda ties. Posting pictures on social media, India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson said that the visit will add fresh impetus to India-Rwanda partnership. Well, let's take a look at other stories making news. As part of the Indo-US joint exercise Prasar 2023, the Indian Air Force, along with the Indian Army, conducted various exercises with US troops in an Mi-17 at Shillong. Helocasting operations were also carried out, displaying high standards of precision, synergy and professionalism. Indian Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya launched nationwide public awareness campaign for cardiopulmonary resuscitation awareness program in NBEMS. More than 20 lakh people participated in the CPR training across the nations. This is the first CPR awareness program in the country that has been conducted at a national level. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Ravi Bishnoi tops ICC's T20 bowling chart. AI industry experts gather in New York City to forecast the industry's trajectory. And promoting viewership of Indian movies among his Nigerian tribe mates.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Changemakers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. On to business updates. European Union countries and lawmakers have agreed on rules governing artificial intelligence systems such as ChatGPT after 10 hours of deliberations. A person with direct knowledge on the talk said on Thursday, according to the source, EU governments made compromises in the hopes of gaining lawmakers' backing to be able to use AI in biometric surveillance for national security, defense and military purposes. The talks, which started on Wednesday, are continuing with the focus on the use of biometric surveillance, which lawmakers want to ban. AI industry experts are gathering in New York City for the 8th annual AI Summit to forecast the industry's trajectory. The summit, spanning 2 days, unites knowledge leaders, policymakers and corporate executives for discourse and workshops. Amid a global push for tech regulations, it assumes significance. DD India's Sally Patterson has more.
It's an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in AI. Representatives from technology companies, financial institutes and governments are set to hold talks and then stick around for networking afterwards. Tech giants including Microsoft, OpenAI and Google are all on the bill. Organisers say the summit, held on December 6th and 7th, will showcase how businesses are implementing and financing AI in a rapidly changing world. It comes just over a month after the UK held a major AI safety summit, looking at the risks of the economy and the industry. World leaders around the world are grappling with how to regulate it. In New York this week, the risks of AI will once again be in focus. tackling bias in technology, for example, but also opportunities for healthcare, finance, security, and more. Through speaker events, workshops, and feedback sessions, it's designed to be a very hands-on event. It promises to upskill employees through interactive and in-depth training sessions. And it is certainly an investment, with delegate tickets costing $2,400. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, Alphabet on Wednesday introduced its most advanced artificial intelligence model, a technology capable of crunching different forms of information such as video, audio, and text. Called Gemini, the Google owner's highly anticipated AI model is capable of more sophisticated reasoning and understanding information with a greater degree of nuance than Google's prior technology. It will be integrated into Bard as well as in the latest Pixel 8 Pro smartphone. Underlining Gemini's state-of-the-art performance across many leading benchmarks, Google CEO Sundar Pichai said that Gemini 1.0 is optimized for different sizes, Ultra, Pro, and Nano. On to sports, India take on Spain in the second Pool C match of the Junior Men's Hockey World Cup on Thursday in Kuala Lumpur. India overcame South Korea in the opening match by 4-2 after vice-captain Arijit Singh Hundal scored a hat-trick. But India's coach C.R. Kumar was not satisfied with the performance and said that his team needs to be more clinical and avoid conceding unnecessary penalty corners. India conceded 6 penalty corners while earned just 2 against Korea. But India will start as favourites against Spain due to the current form of the players. The Spaniards are India's toughest opponents in the pool that also includes Canada. They won a bronze medal at the 2005 edition. India had clinched a silver medal way back in 1997 in England. India's last pool match against Canada is on Saturday. Well, as per the latest ICC rankings, Indian leg spinner Ravi Bishnoi becomes the world's #1 T20 bowler, replacing Rashid Khan. Bishnoi reached the top spot of the ICC T20 bowling chart due to his stunning performance against Australia. The 23-year-old was declared the player of the series as he took 9 wickets from 5 games. Bishnoi was India's go-to bowler in the just concluded T20 International Series. He's jumped 5 places to dethrone Afghanistan spinner Rashid Khan from the top spot. Sri Lankan spinner Hasaranga and England's Adil Rashid are joint third. Well, coach Carlos Queiroz has ended his association with Qatar's national team less than a year after inking a 4-year deal. The decision came a month ahead of next edition of the Asian Cup, which will be hosted by the Gulf state. The former Real Madrid and Portugal head coach took over the reins of the team from Felix Sanchez in Feb after the Qataris hosted last year's World Cup finals. He was charged with qualifying the Gulf state for the 2026 tournament. Qatar won their first Asian Cup title under Sanchez in 2019, and the country is due to defend the trophy on home soil next month. Queiroz oversaw the wins over Afghanistan and India in November in the second round of Asia's preliminary matches for next year's World Cup qualifiers. Mushfiqur Rahman has become the first Bangladeshi batsman to be given out for obstructing the field in Test cricket. The incident took place on the first day of the second Test match against New Zealand in Mirpur. Rahim was dismissed in the 41st over after he swatted the ball away with his right hand, as in the ball had bounced up. The batter had defended the ball into the ground. Rahim joined the rare list of cricketers including the likes of Mohinder Amarnath, Mohsin Khan, Michael Vaughan, etc. to be dismissed in this manner. In the match, Bangladesh reduced New Zealand to 55 runs for the loss of 5 wickets before bad light ended the day's play as Bangladesh were bowled out for a low score of 172. Well, after launching a record-shattering global tour and becoming the world's most streamed musical artist in 2023, Taylor Swift notched yet another record on Wednesday when Time magazine named her as its Person of the Year. Swift took the award in a year where her nearly 2 decades of fame and influence came to a peak. The magazine said in announcing the title, she has become the first person from the field of arts to be honored for her success as an entertainer. Well, you can't take your eyes off Taylor Swift and her songs. Moving on, a Nigerian man is promoting viewership of Indian movies among his tribe mates. Jubril Yunus says that the storylines, dress and culture are admired by the Hausa people. DD India's correspondent Tessie Makende has more.
Seated with rapt attention, these young people in northern Nigeria are watching an Indian movie. They can neither read English subtitles nor understand Hindi. But this movie and many other Indian TV shows are attracting a lot of viewership because Jubril Yunus has taken it upon himself to translate them into the Hausa language, common in the northern part of the country.
Each of the movies comes with a script and subtitles for each word. That's what I use for the translation. India has Hindi and other languages. Once you understand a bit of it, especially Hindi, you are good, and I do.
Viewers at this local cinema say it is a fulfilling experience to watch and understand.
There is a special attachment I now have to Indian movies hearing it in Hausa. The people dress so well. Lots of similarities between them and us here in northern Nigeria.
India's movie industry, Bollywood, according to Statista, has grown over the years and is estimated to be worth around $2.8 billion. In 2020, Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture said collaboration between the country and India in the creative industry is yielding results, with the launch of an all-Nigerian Indian cast movie. Analysts are seeking increased collaboration between both industries for more movies to be translated into local languages in Nigeria the right way.
I'm sure the translations are not perfect because only the movie makers can effectively translate the intended meanings. Or at least they should supervise whatever efforts people are putting into translating them. They should be considering that because it will also lead to the creation of jobs.
Nigeria's Ministry of Information says it is making the move. It says it has offered land to Indian investors for the construction of a film city in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, or the commercial center, Lagos. Such efforts are expected to result in the making of Indian movies in Nigeria, but also to strengthen collaboration between Bollywood and Nollywood. Tassim Akendi in Jos, reporting for DD India.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We're going to be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Anil Thomas. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.